It's so interesting because I've seen, and just through, women's organizations that I'm working with and networking organizations, it seems to be pervasive across industries, across transformations. And it is not uncommon that companies will spend millions and millions and
Yeah.
not have those metrics defined up front. So of
Yeah.
course the finance people are pulling their hair out, but it's unbelievable how common it actually
Yeah.
really is. But accountability is tough, right? And that's the transformation leader's role, is to hold the tension, is to
Yeah.
make those metrics visible, to have the uncomfortable conversations,
Oh, yeah.
because otherwise that the benefits won't be delivered, and that that is not the right investment for the organization.
Hello, my name is Heath Gascoigne, and I am the host of the Business Transformation podcast. And this is the show for business transformators who are part business strategists and part business designers, part collaborators and part negotiators. Business transformators have moved past just business design and includes oversight of implementation of those business designs and business transformations, and includes stakeholder management, coordination, and negotiation. If you work in strategy development and implementation and work to ensure that the strategy is aligned to business design and technology, then you're probably a business transformator. This is a show where we speak to industry experts and professionals to share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you start, turn around, and grow your business transformation. Welcome to the Business Transformation Podcast. And in this episode, we are talking to one of these industry experts. We are speaking to Lauren Spagnola-Robins. Lauren Spagnola-Robins, Chief Transformation Officer, a business transformation lead and CEO at Reframe Transformation. Lauren is a global corporate executive specializing in transforming organizations to level of profitability through business transformation, productivity and cost reduction, reallocation, scalable enterprise operations, and advisory leadership. Lauren has successfully deployed and led global teams and change agendas for Fortune 500 Diageo Group, where Lauren has been for nearly 20 years, last position as the Global Director and SVP of Productivity and Global Business Services, oversaw product and initiatives across over 20 markets, project portfolios over 250 of them, budgets over 180 million, and delivery value of over 700 million. Wow, Lauren, that is very impressive. Thank you for your time. Glad to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Heath. Glad to be here.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so we've got a lot to talk about. You had been previously at Diageo for almost 20 years, plus time since then. So we have a lot to cover. Now, so as we can keep our audience along with our conversation, we'll stick to a tight agenda as best we can. First, 3 points. The key to pivoting a business fast, so get the most of their engagement. So that's a point one. Number two, is there a process that you follow or approach that you follow to help for this transformation? And three, a part that I hold probably dear to my heart around business transformation is the people element. And now from your perspective, you've come from a technology background originally, then you moved into business services, org design and supply chain, and eventually to where you are. So from a technology's perspective to where you are in business and with the people part, how do you see that people role at the moment? Where do they come in? Are they brought in at the right time? What role do people play in these transformation? Is it a big deal, or should we just be focusing on the technology? So that's our last point. So first one, the pivoting. So when you come into a transformation, and so what is, when you're trying to pivot, change an organization, what's the first step you do?
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it's so kind of timely with the state of play in business and industries right now, and so much disruption. A lot of, and we know through all that's happening in private equity and all that's happening in organizations everywhere, a lot of times the board or the executive team want to see change.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know how to pivot the organization fast.
Uh-huh.
And as you say, a lot of times, folks are seeing technology as a silver bullet, or even shared services as a silver bullet. You could drive profitability really fast, but all of that requires a tremendous amount of change to how the organization is going to work.
Yep.
So when we talk about pivoting, first, it's really the most important thing is to align the executive team. I mean, I can't tell you how many transformation agendas I've been a part of where there were maybe one or two sponsors on the executive team, but it was really clear that the rest of the leadership didn't really have their fingerprints on the transformation agenda.
Yep.
If it's going to work, they all need to be aligned. The time needs to be invested to get them aligned. And frankly, if they're not aligned, they're not going to rally and galvanize the teams underneath them.
Yep.
If they're not doing that, their teams are not going to be bought in.
Yeah. Okay. So the key part there for the audience is senior leadership involvement.
Senior leadership involvement and alignment, and investing the time to make sure they're having the really chunky, heavy conversations and aligning around where the business is headed.
Okay, key point there, not just involvement, but alignment. I think, yeah, that's an important point that I've seen that on the current program I'm on, that there is, like you said, there's one or two, SVPs, VPs, C-suite that are, fully endorsing the project. The rest of them are like, it'll happen as it will happen. So we'll set dates, we've communicated a date, and that date sometimes has just been an arbitrary date, no other reason for it. And the business themselves and the change in the project, which especially where I am, that we're trying to work to a date that one or two of the executive team have set, but it's not universally agreed. And everyone is running around like trying to achieve a date that is almost unachievable.
That's right. And then when it comes to actually starting to engage the teams beneath those leaders who don't really have that shared ownership, it's next to impossible, right? And when the rubber hits the road, the leaders, what's happening? So that alignment is really important.
Okay, so to put it in the context there, when we're talking these transformations, we're not talking like a division within an organization. We're talking about the organization, right? The whole organization.
We're talking about the organization. I mean, even if it is a division is going to have its own leadership team, right? Or the leaders for that division. So, but regardless of if it's company-wide, it needs to be the most senior executive team. If it's at a division level, it needs to be the division leadership. But that alignment needs to be there, and not just the vision of where we want to go, but really standing in the future and making sure that leadership team understands what the world's going to look like when that vision is achieved, and that they all really have their fingerprints on it. They're all really bought into it so that they can galvanize their teams and drive that change through their part of the organization.
Okay, yeah, so there's a thing, I think if the listeners didn't hear that, is it's not so much, it's as well as the leadership and alignment across the leadership team themselves, but up and down the organization. So down to their teams and operations. Like I talk about in this space for us is in a transformation, the 3 L's. They've got 3 layers in the organization. The first one, we've got layers in the organization that have different language. The second L, and then different of those languages, they understand a different level of knowledge, a different level of detail that they need. So it's guys at strategy, they like the big picture things and quite high level. You can talk in terms of market share, return on investment, or cost, revenue. Operations is talking about days off, or how many widgets are putting through the process, what's the input, outputs. And down in technology, in terms of their language and level of detail, when we talk about technology and business requirements, it's very detailed and another language. So all these have to be aligned. And I think part of the skill is of the business transformator is that you need to understand who you're talking to.
I love that 3 L's, Heath. I love it. I mean, one of the just kind of points of remembering is when it comes to people is, and it definitely lines up with this 3 L's, is individuals in an organization will care what their boss thinks, and what their boss's boss thinks.
Yeah.
So they will emulate those behaviors. If their boss finds something important and is driving that through, they will do it. If it's their boss's boss, they will as well. When you go much beyond that, they see the leaders as talking heads, right? They're not involved in their day-to-day. So the levels and layers are really important, and making sure that you're pitching that message and in the language, as you say, in the KPIs and metrics that are important for that part of the organization at that level in that function.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, KPIs, and they've got to measure their success or progress towards it. What does that look like? I think you touched on it before when, with the leadership, understanding what the future looks like to be there. Well, I have this client right now where they say, oh, we've got OKRs. And I said, it's okay, OKRs are great. And I did a little video on YouTube about them, comparing those to Visom and saying with OKRs, they're really good. You have an objective and you have a measure to measure towards it. But what's the why? Why do you have that? What does that vision look like? And they say, oh, well, we kind of know. So, well, kind of know. You need to know. And, I think that needs to be the starting point with the right people in the room, and your terms, and the senior executives, the C-suite, all of them, not some of them, but all of them.
That's exactly right. And it is that, standing in the future and getting really clear and really specific about the what and the why, which actually leads me to my second kind of tactic, if you will, which is around building new, specific, tangible outcomes and metrics into performance commitments. Every business has goals and performance commitments. For transformation, it's no different, but it needs to be part of the executive team's bonus structure. It needs to be part of their performance commitments. They need to be bonused on it. The senior leaders in the organization need to be really investing their time, and they need to be rewarded for it. So specific, very tangible outcomes and objectives that are built into the regular performance structure as soon as the transformation is starting is really important. That's what employees understand. It's the framework they respond to. It's how their performance managed. And if they don't see the transformation showing up in those goals in a very tangible way right away, they're not going to see it as important.
Yep. Okay, so in case the audience missed that, and I do something similar, but yours is probably more structured, is that when I talk about breaking down the organization in terms of architecture, from your enterprise architecture to processes and then down to roles and responsibilities, and we get to the point of a job description that outlines this is the processes that these people were carrying out, and these are the metrics you'll be measuring success by, and you should put these, always make that suggestion for HR, you include that in their performance reviews, and so it all capers down from the all the way down. Now, I think that's probably the point. That's the part that's missing, is you have to your point, you need to make that included, these metrics included as part of the executive team, and then it also filters down. So they are performance managed around the changes that should be implemented.
It's very woolly until the metrics come into play, right? And when everyone really understands the from to, the needle we are looking to move, and the levers that are going to be essential to move it, there's a different level of stake in the game, and so that is really super important.
Yeah, you talk about levers there. I talk about levers in terms of people, process, technology, and data, where you get to change those four elements. And mostly you'll say, oh, we want to have a new operating model. Okay, so what are you going to change? People, process, technology, or data, or all of them? And so we want to operate ways of working differently. Okay, so which one of those do you think, what does ways of working mean? The process, okay, that's one of those levers, is process. You're changing one of the processes. But yeah, to that point of woolly, I find that I'm not sure why, but I think I understand why, but people are a bit reluctant to put a defined, definitive metric around a change, because then it makes them accountable.
That's exactly why it makes folks squirmy, right? Yeah. And if we're not going to have that level of, definition of success, what success looks like, visibility to the organization, right? Not just metrics that are kind of something that the executive team are looking at, but metrics that are actually shared and communicated, so the organization can look and see and feel the progress, or
Yeah.
where there are gaps, they understand why decisions are being made in order to address those gaps.
Oh, yeah.
That's super essential, and it's essential to happen early. And what I found is a lot of times there'll be a lot of discussion about the program or the transformation, some high level business case put together, but it
Yeah.
doesn't really start until the rubber meets the road, that we start talking about metrics. And then it's this aha moment of,
Yeah.
wow, how are we going to achieve that? So the
Yep.
earlier upfront that happens, the better.
Okay, they happen early. All right. You know, I wonder so I get called in a couple of situations of these programs, either at inception, where I'm quite lucky, then, get help shape and form the program, or after it started, sometimes a year or 2 years, and you come in and you see the gaps, and you go, well, why didn't you put any metrics around here? Because someone's going to be accountable, and someone's head, rightly should be on the chopping block. If you don't deliver, then so this 250 million pound program is just kicking the can down the street, and nothing was really delivered because no one was accountable. So is it a cultural thing that stops people wanting to do that?
It's so interesting because I've seen, and just through women's organizations that I'm working with and networking organizations, it seems to be pervasive across industries, across transformations. And it is not uncommon that companies will spend millions and millions and not have those metrics defined up front. So of course the finance people are pulling their hair out, but it's unbelievable how common it actually really is. But accountability is tough, right? And that's the transformation leader's role, is to hold the tension, is to make those metrics visible, to have the uncomfortable conversations. Because otherwise the benefits won't be delivered, and that is not the right investment for the organization.
Okay, yeah, you said a key word there, the uncomfortable conversations. So I think we might have to make that the theme of the podcast. Actually, I've been told on many occasions there's some things I can't ask or say because it's uncomfortable, and I would say, just because it's uncomfortable, it doesn't mean you can't ask the question. And if that is the sore point, you're probably going to ask, where's the problem? Probably right there.
That's exactly right. It's always the elephant in the room, right? Across it, the way you handle it is different in different cultures, right? The way you approach that conversation, the way you navigate around it, how you get it on the table or how you address it, is certainly, a lot of times will depend on the audience that you're working with, the stakeholder group that you're working with. But we can't shy away from it, because shying away from it is going to lead you to the result that you don't want.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I call ourselves business transformators as opposed to business architects, part designer, part strategist, part negotiator, part collaborator, because it's more than just coming up for design. You've got to negotiate with people, coordinate, and get them to work together. And that of, here's a design and it's going to work, and people are going to go, yeah, that's nice, that's interesting, and don't take any ownership. And then, if we just wait long enough, like I've seen with operations, we'll go, these guys are just like the last group that turned up. I don't understand a word they're saying. They speak another language, and it's so over my head. But if we just nod our head, and just agree with it right now, they'll go away eventually. And then, sure enough, as soon as the consultants have left the room, or they've left the room, they go, let's just go back to how things were before, and no change happens.
It's so, it's so consistent too, and you can see it time and time again. But we need to kind of remember, there are no technology projects, there are no operations projects. This is everyone's part of the business, right? And this is where culture and communication become so important. You can almost guarantee, if there is a technology related project, it will fail if there is not a business person leading on it.
Oh,
it
yeah.
will fail.
Mm.
And there seems to be this reluctance to have the right people in the room, or oftentimes the business leaders will put folks on projects who just kind of happen to be there versus their top folks who really understand the process that's going to be changing.
Yep.
So that's been an issue time and time again, but it's one of the critical success factors for programs.
Yeah. Okay. So audience who just missed that. Okay. So again, and I talked about this in the last call, the last podcast. Lauren is in another part of the world, in the US, in New York, and I am here in London and UK. And now this what Lauren is just describing about the people elements of transformation projects, and I'll quote you of, there are no technology projects. If I tell these guys that I'm working with is, if you were just to swap out this old legacy system for a new one, and you think that by doing that with the latest all singing, all dancing technology system is going to transform your business, you've got another thing coming. So it's like, but for some reason, you will continue to do the same. That's the definition of insanity, right? Continue to do the same thing again and again, expect a different result. So Lauren is on the other part of the world. This is not a US only situation. This is, I see this myself. Now the book and the feedback I get is sold all around the world, and I get a lot of emails and queries. Oh, that we've experienced this. You have basically said what I was thinking. I've been thinking the same thing for years, but we experience. So this is a shared problem across transformation projects internationally. So,
especially for large organizations, because what ends up happening is a lot of times the technology team will run with it. They'll know, and with all the right intent, they'll know that a change needs to be made, but without getting the right expertise in there, they don't have the right change made.
yep.
And so what you'll find is sometimes with smaller organizations where you've got kind of the athletes, you've got someone who's, running the business, really doing the selling and understands the technology, it doesn't happen as much, of course, but they're not large scale transformation projects. It's
Yep.
almost guaranteed to happen if it's not really deliberately led by the business with the right steering group, with shared accountability at the executive team or the leadership team that's responsible for this, and the right KPIs.
Okay, so just to summarize that, led by the business, shared accountability that was also aligned and across the senior leadership, and clear metrics. And that's the success factors, 6 success measures. Okay, so everyone got that? Got the pen and paper out? I have.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that is, okay, I think those are some really good takeaways just on that point. Now, on your approach, so you come into what is the approach that you come in, you're into a project, like lucky, like if you, like me, in some cases, you're lucky at inception, and if you're unlucky and everything's kicked off, and of course when it's kicked off, and you come along and put your hand out and say, okay, we might be missing a few things, and people say, oh no, Lauren's asking us to down tools. Oh no, we're going to stop. We don't want to stop. We've got momentum. Although we're in the wrong forest, chopping down the wrong trees, but we are got momentum. So, what's your approach for those situations?
Yeah, and it is so often that you have to jump in the middle of something. But I think one of the real accountabilities of the transformation leader is to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And there's a framework I use, and it's actually, very much lined up, Heath, with what you said earlier. It's a from-to framework that I use that ensures that the members of the executive team and program team are defining the organizational structure, the organizational strategy, then structure, then process, then tools, people, and culture. What are going to be the changes across each of those areas? Strategy, structure, process, tools, people, and culture. Really defining the where we are now, the where we're going to be, and the metrics that we're going to see changed as a result. And you can do that even if the program is already underway. The group should have a good idea of it. But what you'll find is that if the program is underway, different people will have different pieces of information or different views based on their vantage point, based on their role. And it's very often not in one place,
Yeah.
not
Yep.
in a simple scorecard that
Mm-hmm.
aligns everyone in the program team, everyone in the organization in very clear black and white around a shared view of success. And what you'll find is a lot of times these programs are underway, and even just doing that, there's tons of debate.
Oh,
There's,
yes.
there's often no view of success, no scorecard that anyone can point to. So really forcing that conversation, sometimes again a very hard conversation,
Yes. Yep.
because you're getting really tactical about
Yeah.
what is going to change and what the future is going to look like. And even doing it around more, softer topics like culture are so important. Culture runs through every single thing we're talking about.
Oh, yes.
We
Yep.
can make the best changes. You can have the best process, the best technology, anything. If the
Yeah.
culture isn't there, it's dead in the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
transformation is about culture change. And that's where, when we continue this conversation and we talk about the people element,
Yep.
that's where making sure that every single action we take, everything we do, we are using micro steps and micro actions to embed cultural shifts.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to quote you on all of these. Micro steps and micro actions to embed the transformation, business transformation. Now, you said a few good things in there, like many good things in there. That part about the that information is in different places, and not the same place, and probably even not shared views across the organization about getting what the vision looks like, what our strategy for the people, process, technology, and data and culture. I see that myself, and the hard conversations. Like on one project, it took, in one instance, a recent one with HR transformation for, I'll say the name, the MHRA, that was relatively quick to get the vision done with the senior management team. We took it to the board and got it approved. I said, yeah, great, that's what we want for that division. It supports the overall organization division. And on another program, it took 3 months just to get the vision statement. And it was because there were so many shared, unshared views. One person, not everyone had the same shared view. And it took 3 months just to get the vision statement, not the strategies, what we're doing for people, process, technology, and data. These are hard conversations. And I think you touched on it earlier, talking about the leadership, transformation leadership. That's a big role. And I think people understand how big that role is. It's not saying, okay, I'm going to sponsor. So yeah, you're the sponsor. You know what the sponsor means? It means that you are at the front leading, not at the back going, okay, you should do. So no. You're going to roll your sleeves up sometimes and get involved.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And sometimes, those tough conversations between the executive team are really, really tough. I mean, I remember spending, I think, 4 hours with an executive team debating new travel and expense policies that were just minor changes, but they got so emotional. Those changes were going to translate to cost savings that were then going to be reinvested in the business. But the emotion around it, you know what? We came out of it with complete alignment. And it was worth the time. The policies were introduced, the changes were made, the culture was shifting. But it really took a lot of hard conversations around something that seemed relatively insignificant, to be honest. So leaders are used to being able to take calls. That's why they're leaders. But when you're trying to align to a shared vision, they need to work together, come together, and make sure that they're really showing up to the organization as one cohesive unit. And that takes time.
So how do you get then the executives in that case, like, or you could say, okay, we're locking the door. You're not getting out until the decision's made. And we came in here with an objective. The objective is to achieve this. And so we're not walking out of here until it's done. Yeah. So how do you do that?
I mean, the experience that I've found is this is where it's great to have transformation leaders as well as some external experts, because I think once you inject that external perspective, it takes a little bit of the emotion out of it, frankly. When you look at, well, we've done things in our company this way forever. And a lot of times in some of these senior roles, you have folks who've been with the organization for a long time,
Yeah.
very often. So they may not appreciate that, what, the world has moved on. Other companies are doing it this way. This actually isn't that different. So what I've found is injecting a good level of external perspective as
Yep.
well as showing internal best practice. Because it is also easy for people to say, that doesn't apply to us, but they're different. That company's different. But when you start to say, well, it's interesting because why can they do that in Asia, but we can't do it here?
Yeah.
And, what is different? What are they doing differently that they don't need to spend X amount, or they can sell X amount? And it's really interesting when you start to get that global perspective in there. And share internal benchmarks, internal metrics, compare folks to each other. A lot of times when we run into stumbling blocks, that has helped me personally get through them. Sharing data. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, to be fair. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable, but that is the transformation leader's role.
Yep.
It's not often, the most popular role, but it's really important that you're able to do that in a way that is transparent, honest, managing the relationships, and also sensitive to the political dynamics. But it is important.
Oh yes, there's a couple of key points there about the transparent and sensitive. You need to be, because it's people, right? If it was technology and it's hard and no emotion involved, fine, you could probably take the hard line, but with people involved, no, you got to do softly in some cases. I think I've seen that myself with using external consultants. Yes, for that, take the emotion out of it because it's third party and they'll come in and hopefully offer some external expertise, seeing it for the first time and not being embedded and going, as you said, oh, this is how we've always done things around here. And whenever I hear that, I go, oh no, there's the problem right there. They're stuck in a rut and they're quite comfortable. They're in the comfort zone. They don't want to change. Although they'll complain until the cows come home that how inefficient the processes are and their life could be a lot easier, but they don't want to change. They're saying people like change, but they don't want to change. But there's also the catch. I think the caveat is when you bring in external help is that you do it a couple of ways. You understand whether it's appropriate and then apply it, or proportionately don't just take it off the shelf, because I've seen these internal guys will say, well, this is what they've said. I said, okay, yes, they did say that, but two, we have to understand how that affects this organization. This organization is not quite the same as that other, same space, same market, same some of the products, but it's not quite the same. And I think that's part of our role, is also to educate the internal guys to go, okay, you still have control. The control rests with you. We'll tell you and guide you, but the decision lies ultimately with you.
Absolutely. The transformation leader's role is to help them understand the possibility, the inspiration, and to really define the art of the possible, and then figure out how do we make that very real and fit the right way in the organization. How do we maintain the magic of our organization, but still continue to move forward?
I like that, the art of the possible. I was actually going to call the second book The Art of the Possible, but it is the art of the possible. You create something almost out of nothing. It's there, like I say, with business architecture, it makes the visible the invisible. It's the way you look at the organization. In most cases, the business is so caught in the detail that they can't see. Do you know you've got these good opportunities and you've got these subject matter experts, but you have buried them deep in this process where they're so overwhelmed in the technical detailed work where you should bring them back a bit, but they don't see that.
Of course they don't see it. They're running their business, right? They're just running their business. And that's why you don't have transformation leaders all the time, right? It's to come in there to help make a change and support the line organizations in making a change so that they can move their part of the team from A to B.
Yep.
And it really is, that's why it's sometimes uncomfortable and sticky. People feel like you could be getting into their space. So you need to be able to navigate that human element of it.
Yep.
But it is really important to show them the art of the possible, because
Yep.
they're busy running their business day to day.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, they don't have time all the time to lift their heads up
Yeah.
and figure out, what does the next turn of the crank look like?
Yep. Okay. So for so again, this audience, if you missed that, Lauren originally, as a technology background, moved into business transformation, and now organization design and performance productivity, and stressing the importance of people. Will probably bring us on to our third point about people's role in transformations. Is it a significant role? Where do you see people in? Are they recognized where they are pivotal to the success of the program? Or like I see here on this program, the technology side of the program has gone off into RFP at the very, very start of the program. They've gone off engaged for suppliers to build the solution. And then they're telling me in the next breath, yes, we're bringing the business along this journey with us. I'm going, there are no business people involved in the project except me. And I'm not even from the business.
Yeah. It is textbook. It's absolutely textbook. And I think what is, as I said before, I think there is genuinely positive intent, but the reality of it is no one knows the way the supply chain works better than the supply guy.
Yeah.
No one knows how the sales team works better than the sales guy. It's just not going to happen. It's not about the technology. It's about how we work. It's about process. It's about connection. So I think, I do feel as if technology leaders are starting to understand that more, yet it still does not prevent us from starting projects before we have business buy-in. You shouldn't need business buy-in. It's their project. Yeah. So it is, there's kind of a quote that I love, which is that organizations get the technology that they deserve. Oh. And, it really is true, because if you don't put your best people on it that really understand how the business works, what's going to sell, how we're going to run, then you're not going to get the outcome you want from your technology investment. It's very black and white.
I'm going to quote you on all these. Organizations get the technology they deserve. That's great. Now I report that this program reports to the technology, and I'll probably get myself in trouble, but this will be come out in a couple of weeks, so maybe I'll be cleared of the firing line at that point. Is that the response to that there are no operations people here, and I say they're not interested. That was a response I got, and I said, "Is it not interested because you've asked them, or you think that?" And I said, "Well, we haven't asked them, but we think that." And I said, that's not how you're going to get transformation, by thinking and putting words into the business's mouth. They will see that you have, one, not bringing them along the journey, and you are putting words into their mouth. And so how much, just give a rudimentary figure of how much you think you're spending on the technology. It's in the tens of millions. And I said, you're spending tens of millions in investment on an annual basis on technology, not including the value of the cost of this project. And you don't involve the business. Wow.
You will guarantee the sunk cost on that. It will absolutely. And even if for whatever reason, somehow, magically, the solution worked for the business, they wouldn't have their fingerprints on it, and they wouldn't embed it anyway.
Yeah.
So not only is it not going to work because they're not part of the design, but they're not going to have the ownership to drive the implementation through the teams that have to use it. It's going to feel like somebody else's thing. And so there's so many different angles to that. All transformation is about people. It's not about technology. It's not about business cases. It's not about metric. It is about people. It's about ownership, communication, getting your fingerprints on it, winning hearts and minds, having, folks really be redirected from their day jobs to the transformation versus a separate project team that has no idea what the day job is like of that individual.
Yeah. Okay, so transformation is about the people. That is, for complete disclosure, you and we've not met other than having a quick call beforehand, right? So and we're in different parts of the world. So this is like if we were sitting beside each other on the same project, or I was in the US, same project, we're experiencing the same things. The difference here is that we're in different continents across the same different parts of the world. Now, I couldn't stress it enough that when I come into these projects, I feel, and then some of these projects have been government projects, and before I was a British citizen, and I could see the value of these projects and sunk costs, and they weren't getting return on investment. I was going, not only are the people in the business who are providing the service and products to the country, in this case for the government, that the changes aren't being implemented and they aren't realizing any value, and so it's wasted money that way. But from the country's perspective of the services that are provided, they got no better services. And so it's like, these projects, the whole benefit of the projects is you make some change, and then the world changes and you need another transformation. But you don't need to try and extend a project to make it go longer and longer and longer and deliver nothing. You can, if you do it well, do it properly.
And I have to say that is probably one of the hardest, most difficult jobs of a transformation leader, to come in and, particularly when a project is underway,
yep.
And to call it like it is, because it is so often that we don't fail fast. Businesses don't fail fast. They feel like they've got this cost, they've got this investment, they've got the political elements of it behind it, and it's really hard. It takes a big leader to say, you know what, we probably should have done this differently, and now we need to stop. We so rarely stop, and the write-off gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And this, by the way, is everywhere. Because I think you said in the top of the call, the 30%, and if it was in a different one of your podcasts, forgive me, but only 30% of transformation projects are successful.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Which means that most of them aren't. And, and even the definition of success, you can kind of debate in that 30%. But really failing fast is what these newer technology organizations, more entrepreneurial organizations do really well. And some of the bigger players have to figure that out.
That part about fail first is very similar to when you said earlier about not only when I said get the senior leadership executive team involved, you said I'll get them involved and aligned. And the same with that fail fast is the same. Not just don't get your third party, your external experts in and just take what they say and let's just use it and fail fast. As I know, I've implemented in our project now is like the modus operandi. Said now for our modus operandi, our default mode of operation, our default way of working is question the question, and even question me. I am not beyond reproach. I'm not beyond question. You should question why we're asked to do something. And so, we're going to fail fast. Said, you know what? I hear that a lot. Fail fast. That you aim to fail fast, and it's all right to try new things because we can fail fast. Well, what you need, there's a step before fail fast, is to question it. Yeah. Because otherwise, you will always be failing fast.
Right from the first time. Yeah.
So I find that as there's some part about thinking for yourself, and if it agrees with your common sense, take it on board. But if it doesn't, if you are told on the recommendation that it sounds confusing now, 2 days, 20 days, 10 weeks down the track, it doesn't get any clearer, and it is as clear as it was when you first heard it.
I love this, Heath, because I think what happens often is folks who are on the ground they will see something that's wrong almost immediately, right? And then you've got these senior people who are pretty removed from the day-to-day detail that frankly, they want nothing more than to know what's working, what's not.
Yeah.
But a lot of times the folks that see these red flags, for whatever reason, don't feel comfortable raising it, or
Yeah.
they just, as you say, accept it.
Mm.
So this is where communication is so fundamental,
Yep.
breaking down those lines. And, I've always done tons of skip level meetings and roundtables and just town halls and, lunch and learns, getting to know people. It's so important that you remove the hierarchy from these transformation projects, because you're only going to get the truth from the folks who are actually in the weeds doing the delivery every day.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I said to those words when you were saying about so far removed from the pain, I've made recommendations here of, okay, we got to get the guys that are actually doing the work in operations. And they said, no, they give me names. I said, no, they can't feel the pain. They're so far removed that it doesn't mean anything to them. They will make a decision that will impact these people in operations. And how many of them? Oh, you got 2,000 of them. And so that's a big change. And if they can't feel that pain, we're talking to the wrong people, because they'll make a decision that doesn't impact them.
That's exactly right. And again, maybe with the best of intent, they think it's the right decision, but it needs to be that end user every time.
Yep.
The customer directly, the employee directly, the user directly. They're the ones that are going to be able to give you the answer.
Okay. Now, beauty. Okay, so we're right on the hour. So I'll wrap. I don't know if I can wrap up what we just talked about. There's a lot there. So I asked you from the top of the hour, or from the start, about the three things about the pivot, about the process you follow, and how important do you see the people and the people's role. And just quickly on that one is like, it's everything, right? You get that, if you're trying to transform, and I think you said the key word around, there are no technical transformations. It's people transformations, culture transformations. Like on a recent post, I put that your staff are 100% people. If you don't understand your people, you do not understand your business transformation. And so, do you think this technology? Yeah.
That's exactly right. And you know what? You can learn so much from them. And the entire senior leadership team can learn so much from them. It's just about listening. Just to kind of wrap that up, Keith, I mentioned that micro actions go along
and steps. Yep.
Every single interaction that you have as a member of the transformation team is sending a message. People want to resist change. It's natural. Human nature is to resist change. So if the people on the transformation team aren't sending the right message, aren't sending the right signal, aren't using, frankly, every opportunity to talk about the transformation, to talk about how it's going to change, the benefits, to be honest about the drawbacks as well, because they're always there, right? To be really transparent. It's always that balance of what's right for the organization, what's right for the customer, what's right for the employee. But the folks on the transformation team can be that mouthpiece, and they need to be those advocates to help bring the organization along, to win hearts and minds, to help each and every employee get their fingerprints on the change, so they feel good about it from the beginning, and it becomes more organic and less of a threat and less of a big deal when it actually starts to happen.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So the key point there, if those got missed it, is people is a major part. That and I think part of that is through the process that you get them as a change champion, the advocates. Your words there is that you get them from the people in the business, the ones that to the end user. You said earlier, make sure that's the end user every time. So not the disjointed from the pain and from the organization too high level that they can't see and feel it, but it is the end user, and those people become the advocates, that they are the change champions, if you like, that will go with that positive voice. And because I talk about them on these projects here, so you think by just changing technology we're going to change this organization? No way. And you think as soon as we've walked out, the consultants have left this building, you watch everything go back to how it was before, because you've not embedded the change.
Yeah, sustainability. And the only way you're going to get that is if those tentacles are through the organization and the people within it.
Okay, so I don't know if I can do justice to a summary. And so if everyone who wants to play it back and get the summary, but all the show notes are going to be there. I'll do my best here to sum it up. So we had from the beginning was I asked about what was the crucial parts to a pivot. And you said that the executive team alignment, and I said, yes, get them involved, but you said involved and aligned. That's a crucial part. Then I talked there about the three Ys, the three Ls, and you said yes, the layers, levels, and language. And you have you took that a step further about the metrics, that making those metrics they're part of their performance measures, which is like if you want to guarantee success, you make somebody accountable. How do you make them accountable? You put a measure on it. And so you have to achieve it. You don't achieve it, hey, you didn't meet it. And if you don't meet it, that's two parts, both personally and professionally, but also the organization transformation didn't do it. So that part there around metrics, and it's a challenge there is around currently what exists is the woolly part where they don't have it. And partly there is because of they don't want the accountability. Part of that, and the response to that was, well, that if you get it, that provides then the shared ownerships, shared responsibility, shared vision. And then you said about making it happen. And when do you make it happen? As early as possible in the process. Yep. Okay. So, yeah, and that's where we talked about the uncomfortable conversations. And as I would say, and business transformators, we're negotiators, strategists, designers, and collaborators. We're going to, uncomfortable conversations. That's in the job title. It's like, if we don't say it, Yep.
Changing people's behavior is hard. It's hard work.
Yep.
But if the earlier we're communicating both the outcomes, what a shared view of success looks like, the wins along the way, getting the folks on the ground to communicate the wins, the more we are embracing the human element of the transformation, the more likely we are to actually embed a change that's going to give us the benefits we desire.
Yeah. So again, people. You're changing people. You're changing people. You're changing people. So technology is an enabler of these changes. Sorry, technology guys, you are good friends of mine, and I love you dearly. We all play a role in this. We'll get the best out of technology when the business will give you the requirements, as opposed to you second guessing or building what you've interpreted as what they need. So we're not unfairly picking on our technology colleagues, but staff the people, and you'll be in a lot better place. And so what you said around that time was about there are no technology projects, and so isn't that interesting? That's why I see from the beginning the disclaimer is we've not met each other, but we're at different parts of the world and we're saying the same things. This I don't think this is unique to just you and I. I think this is more than this is a shared view.
A shared transformation challenge, and it is it just something I've learned time and time again, very often the hard way. So now it's really incumbent upon us to share and help save us from ourselves.
Yes. And then so the second part there around the process, there is a process you follow, and you look at strategy and structure, process, tools, and people and culture. And you make sure that you know where you are now, where you will be in the future, and what is that change is involved. And that there was the current issue is that people don't want to have those hard conversations. And it's like, well, hey, if they don't happen, the transformation is not going to happen.
That's exactly right. And just forcing a framework to have that conversation sometimes is just super helpful. It's all about the people.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, transformation is about the culture change and the micro steps and the micro actions, and that what embeds the business transformation. Yeah, and I think that was, and then ultimately we got to the end of we talked about the external consultants, bring them in, help break down that maybe more the paradigm shift or their
possible.
Yeah, the art of the possible, their current perception of how things are. That's just how they've always been, and so therefore that's how they always will be. So no, bring in the external to help break down that more like the way of working, way of thinking. But the challenge with that is don't always take what the third parties say is question the question, and then say and apply it applicable and appropriate for that situation.
Exactly right, Heath.
Okay, I think we've covered it there. What a good coverage. Okay.
Such a fun conversation. And I don't know if it's useful, Heath, but I can give you to post kind of a one-pager.
Thank you very much. Yeah, if you could give that to me, I'll put that in a link. I'll put everything in the show notes and everything referred to, the quotes or to your LinkedIn profile. So if people want to get in contact with you and the company, so you can see your background, they'll all be in the show notes. So anyone wants to contact and say, okay, we need some help with this. We do have the same problem that you talked about. Can you come in and help us out? Maybe you might get in trouble with a little moonlighting on the side.
I'm happy to share lessons learned. I do a ton of it, and really happy to help.
Okay, there you are, ladies and gentlemen. That was Lauren, all the way from New York, other side of the continent, who's sharing seeing same things and transformation as across the pond here in the UK, which is not unique to just us in these two different continents, but around the world. I hope you enjoyed it. Lauren, thank you very much for your time, and we will be in touch.
Thank you, Heath.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks.